Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Battle War Conflict. Today we're diving into a jaw-dropping announcement that has sent ripples across the world. A new surprise meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, which has stunned Volodymyr Zelenskyy and reshaped the strategic dynamics of the Russia-Ukraine war. We'll unpack the exterior context, interior motivations and subplots, performance expectations, safety features of i.e., risks and safeguards, unique selling points of this meeting, price i.e., political cost/benefit, and then bring it all together in a conclusion. Let's begin by setting the stage, the external environment. The war between Russia and Ukraine has dragged on since February 2022, with massive casualties, shifting front lines, sanctions, drone and missile strikes, and global geopolitical consequences. With that in mind, this announcement of a Putin-Trump meeting is in itself significant. Trump, having announced he and Putin will meet in Hungary, Budapest in the coming weeks, this comes after a call between the two leaders that lasted more than 2 hours. On the Ukrainian side, Zelenskyy has rejected proposals that Ukraine cede territory as part of a peace deal, saying any decisions without Ukraine are dead decisions. So, the exterior picture, a surprise meeting announcement between two superpowers leaders during an ongoing war, is instantly a geopolitical bombshell. Now let's move into the interior paragraph, delving into motivations, hidden agendas, internal calculations, and what's going on behind the scenes. On the U.S. side, Trump appears to be attempting a bold gamble. By meeting Putin directly, he signals that he can broker major deals, perhaps drive toward a peace arrangement, or at least claim credit for bringing opponents to the table. At the same time, he is under pressure domestically and internationally regarding continued U.S. support for Ukraine and the risks of escalation. Reports indicate that the prospect of providing Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles is on the table. Trump commented that Ukraine might give U.S. drones in exchange for Tomahawks. Meanwhile, Russia's Putin may see this meeting as an opportunity to reset the narrative. If he sits with Trump, he gains a degree of legitimacy and a chance to shape the post-war settlement on his terms. Russia's foreign policy machinery, e.g., Sergei Lavrov, has cautioned that any meeting with Ukraine's Zelenskyy must be thoroughly prepared. On the Ukrainian side, Zelenskyy is caught in a precarious position. He has to maintain strong resistance and insist that Ukraine will not give up territory, while recognizing that if a deal is struck between the U.S. and Russia without Ukrainian leadership being fully in control, Ukraine could be left behind. As he put it, any decisions made without Ukraine will never work. Therefore, the internal workings involve a three-way power play, U.S. trying to broker/mediate, Russia trying to shape outcomes, Ukraine resisting unwanted compromises. The announcement of a Putin-Trump meeting potentially sidelines Ukraine, or at least alarms Kyiv because it shifts the bargaining table. There are hidden lower stakes, arms negotiations, sanction relief, the shape of post-conflict security guarantees, territorial lines, influence over NATO's posture, and how Ukraine might be supported or not in future. On top of that, there's domestic politics, for Trump projecting leader as peacemaker helps his image, for Putin showcasing negotiation with the U.S. helps Russian narrative of being treated as equal global power, for Zelenskyy rallying Ukrainian national unity around resistance helps shore up his political capital. The interior motivations and tensions are thick. This is not just a handshake moment, it's a high-stakes strategic showdown disguised as diplomacy. Moving on to the next part, performance expectations. What is this meeting expected to do, and how will its success or failure be judged? First, expectation 1, to bring a concrete pathway toward ending, or at least reducing, the war in Ukraine. If Putin and Trump meet, the world will expect them to discuss a ceasefire or terms of settlement, territory, security guarantees, arms control, and reconstruction. The performance bar is high. Second expectation, to shift the leverage dynamics. If the U.S. secures Russian commitments, it could renegotiate Ukraine's support framework. If Russia gets concessions, it could claim victory, or at least a win in moral/strategic terms. Third, the meeting will be evaluated on communication and optics. Will both leaders demonstrate cooperation, mutual respect, and willingness to compromise, or will the meeting fizzle with no tangible results? For Ukraine's Zelenskyy, performance will be judged by whether he retains Ukrainian control of the negotiations, whether Ukraine gets assurances that it won't be marginalized, and whether U.S. backing remains strong. Fourth, on the broader stage, the meeting will be measured by how third parties NATO, EU, Eastern European states respond. Is this meeting stabilizing or destabilizing? Ultimately, the performance benchmark will be, did the meeting bring overall conflict reduction, or did it raise new uncertainties and risks? For the channel audience, the story is interesting because the meeting's performance will influence future war dynamics, arms flows, territorial lines, and the global power balance. Next, safety features. In war metaphor speak, what safeguards, risks, mitigation, and safeguards are built into or missing from this meeting. First, a safety feature is that the announcement itself gives advance notice and time for the parties to prepare, rather than a totally off-the-cuff meeting. This allows some diplomatic and security preparation. On the U.S. side, there is likely military, intelligence input and coordination with allies. On Russia's side, there will be parallel internal planning. Second, a safety feature is that meeting venues and logistics will be heavily secured. Heads of state meeting amid war need large security planning, safe transport, secure communications, and contingency plans. Third, there are signaling tools. For example, Trump and Zelenskyy already discussed that they would not publicly speak about certain arms transfers to avoid escalation. That is a way of controlling risk of public rupture. Fourth, the meeting allows the parties to signal willingness to engage rather than go full tilt escalation. This in itself may act as a safety valve. On the flip side, major risks. If the meeting fails or leads to no progress, it could embolden Russia to escalate, demoralize Ukraine, and damage U.S. credibility. If the terms proposed favor Russia heavily, for instance, territory concessions by Ukraine, and Ukraine feels sidelined, it could spark internal instability. Also, miscommunication or leaks could trigger backlash. The setup might face safeguard shortcomings. For example, Ukraine may feel excluded. Russia may use meeting announcements to gain time and escalate elsewhere. Allies might feel betrayed. So, the safety features are about risk mitigation via preparation, secure logistics, signaling, but those only go so far given the high-stakes environment. Now let's move to unique selling points USPs of this meeting announcement. What makes this story special and why it has huge appeal? 1. The headline of the meeting itself is inherently dramatic. 2 of the world's most prominent and polarizing leaders, Putin and Trump, meeting during one of the most intense ongoing wars. That alone draws global attention, provides story value, and sets major expectations. 2. The meeting offers a possible pivot point in the war in Ukraine. If anything significant flows from it, e.g., ceasefire, arms deal, territorial negotiation, it could mark a strategic inflection. So for analysts and the audience, this meeting may herald real change. 3. It opens strategic questions around power shifts. Will the U.S. assume a leading role in brokering peace? Will Russia accept new constraints? Will Ukraine be left out? Will allies adjust? This adds complexity and narrative richness. 4. For media and audiences, the meeting is a story of personalities, geopolitics, suspense, possible betrayal, and high stakes. Ideal content for a channel like ours, which covers war, conflicts, and the dynamics behind them. 5. The meeting may bring new layers to arms discussions, Tomahawk missiles, drones, long-range systems, and so the story intersects war, technology, strategy, and diplomacy. For our audience, that intersection is golden. So in summary, the USB are the dramatic characters, the potential pivot in a major war, the strategic implications, the narrative texture, and the high audience interest. Let's talk about price, not monetary price here, but political cost/benefit calculus, or what's the price to pay and what's the payoff. For Trump, the payoff could be major, being seen as the peacemaker, increasing global stature and domestic political advantage. But the price, if the meeting fails, he may look weak or wrong. If Ukraine perceives the U.S. is negotiating behind their back, it could alienate allies. For Putin, payoff, legitimacy, potential weakening of the Ukraine-Western coalition, possible concessions on sanctions or arms. Price, meeting may raise expectations he cannot meet. He may be forced to commit to something that constrains Russia later. Also, domestic critics may view any compromise as weakness. For Ukraine's Zelenskyy, payoff, if the meeting produces strong support, arms, or security guarantees, that's huge. Price, if a deal emerges where Ukraine must concede territory or influence, price is enormous national morale, sovereignty questions, domestic backlash, the global community, payoff, possibility of war, ending or de-escalation. Price, risk of bad deal, repeated error, undermining deterrence, weak signals to adversaries. For us as watchers, the price is the credibility of our coverage. If we misinterpret or hype unrealistic outcomes, we lose trust. So the price, in this scenario, is high stakes all around. Finally, conclusion. This surprise announcement of a meeting between Putin and Trump is far from just a photo op. It is a strategic moment laden with risks, possibilities, and global implications. On one hand, it offers a rare opportunity for diplomacy when many believed the war in Ukraine was locked in stalemate. On the other hand, the meeting could shift bargaining power, reshape alliances, and leave Ukraine feeling sidelined. For our channel, Battle War Conflict, this is precisely the kind of story that matters because it blends geopolitics, war strategy, leadership, and global power plays. Audience members should watch for 3 key signals in the coming days. 1. Will specific agenda items, arms, territory, ceasefire be publicly announced or leaked? 2. How will Ukraine respond? Will Zelenskyy be included, or will Kyiv react against the process? 3. What will Russia demand or concede, and how will NATO/EU respond? In the end, if this meeting leads to substantive progress, it could mark the beginning of a new phase in the Russian-Ukraine war. If it fails, it may reinforce the status quo or even lead to escalation as hopes are dashed. Either way, it is a story worth following closely. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss our deep dives into these critical global developments.